Right now, as you watch this video, over 2,200 rockets have been launched within a 36-hour window. Entire towns across northern Israel are empty, and more than 80,000 civilians have already been evacuated, according to statements released by the Israeli Defense Forces on October 18, 2025. Not Gaza, not Tehran, but the north. Pressure. At exactly 6:42 a.m. local time, sirens began echoing across Haifa, Kiryat Shmona, and Metula, not once, not twice, but in sustained waves that lasted over 17 minutes, a duration Israeli civil defense officials told BBC is well beyond standard interception cycles. And then something unusual happened. Silence. Not peace, not safety, but calculation. Because while the Iron Dome batteries were still recalibrating, intelligence reports cited by Reuters and Al Jazeera confirmed something far more dangerous. This was not a single barrage. It was a layered firing sequence designed to probe, overwhelm, and then exploit. 3 phases, 3 timings. One message: this was not about damage, it was about pressure, applied slowly, precisely, and in a way that forces a decision no government wants to make. And the part nobody is saying out loud yet is what happens when that pressure doesn't break. Here's the central thesis. Israel is not being overwhelmed because of the number of rockets. It is being pressured because of the timing, coordination, and strategic intent behind them. This is not about firepower, it is about geometry, of fronts, of time, of decision-making capacity. And in the next few minutes, I am going to walk you through exactly how this northern escalation was constructed, why it is far more dangerous than it looks on the surface, and the 2 very different paths this situation can take from here, one that stabilizes the region and one that quietly pushes it toward a much larger war. We are going to break down the exact origin moment, the precise hour this shifted from tension to strategy. We are going to examine the military math, dollar for dollar, system for system. And then we are going to confront the part most coverage avoids, what this means for institutions, for alliances, and for you. But before we go further, subscribe and turn on notifications, because the next 72 hours of this story are going to move fast, and missing even one update means being completely out of position on what happens next. Because this is not slowing down, it is accelerating. Let us go back to October 17, 2025. 6:39 a.m., northern Israel, the ridge line above Kiryat Shmona. The air was still, no sirens, no jets overhead, no visible movement across the border. Farmers had already started moving equipment into the fields. School buses were running on schedule. According to municipal reports cited by CNN, over 62% of residents in the immediate area had already adapted to a reduced-risk routine after weeks of intermittent tension. It felt contained, predictable, manageable, and across the border in southern Lebanon, satellite imagery reviewed by Reuters later showed no large-scale mobilization, no visible staging, no mass formations, nothing that would trigger immediate alarm. That was the point, because the dry timber had been stacking for years. Since 2006, Hezbollah has expanded its rocket arsenal to an estimated 150,000 projectiles, according to assessments by the Center for Strategic and International Studies, CSIS. Funding pipelines tied to Iranian support networks, estimated at $700 million annually by the U.S. State Department, ensured not just quantity, but precision upgrades. At the same time, Israel invested over $1.6 billion into Iron Dome development, with each interceptor missile costing between $40,000 to $50,000, according to Pentagon budget disclosures. Stop. Read that again. A system designed for protection against a threat designed for saturation. At 6:42 a.m., the first siren sounded. At 6:43, the first rockets crossed. At 6:44, the sky filled. Engines off, weapons loaded, waiting. This is not just a border, it is the nervous system of an entire security doctrine, where response time, interception rate, and political decision-making all collide in seconds, and in that moment, the system was being tested. Revelation number 1, this is not a rocket attack, this is a cost exchange war, and Israel is on the wrong side of the equation. According to reporting from Reuters, BBC, and defense briefings referenced by the Pentagon, Hezbollah's arsenal includes short-range Katyusha rockets costing as little as $300 to $800 per unit, alongside more advanced systems like the Fateh 110, with precision guidance. Now compare that. Each Iron Dome interceptor costs between $40,000 and $50,000, confirmed by U.S. defense budget data and cited by the New York Times. Dollar for dollar, a $500 rocket can force a $50,000 response. Re-listen to that, and this is where the scale becomes dangerous. Israeli defense officials, speaking through statements covered by CNN and Al Jazeera, confirmed that during peak saturation windows, interception prioritization is activated, meaning not every rocket is engaged, only those calculated to hit populated or strategic zones. That sounds efficient. Until you understand the math. If even 10% of a 1-200 rocket barrage bypasses interception cycles, that is 120 impacts across infrastructure, military positions, and civilian areas. Now layer in timing. According to analysis from CSIS and field reporting by BBC, these barrages are not simultaneous. They are sequenced. First wave to trigger interception, second wave to drain inventory, third wave to exploit the gap, 3 waves, one objective, overwhelm the system without needing to destroy it. A senior Israeli defense official quoted in Reuters said, "We are managing the threat." He did not say controlling. He did not say neutralizing. That was not an accident. His words, not mine. And here is the final piece. The United States has already deployed additional missile defense support in the region, including Patriot and THAAD systems, according to Pentagon statements reported by CNN, which means this is no longer a local equation. It is now a theater-level resource drain. That is revelation number 1, and we are just getting started. Revelation number 2, and this is the part the mainstream media is getting wrong. Before the numbers, before the headlines, before the maps filled with arrows and trajectories, there was a morning. The kindergarten in Kiryat Shmona was painted with bright blue clouds and yellow suns. Children aged 4 to 6 were lining up for breakfast at 7:10 a.m., according to local municipal reporting cited by BBC. Parents had already left for work. The routine was intact, predictable, safe, or at least it felt that way. Then the sirens came, not one, not distant, immediate, overhead. Teachers moved fast. Protocols followed. Children pushed into reinforced rooms designed to withstand impact. According to CNN and Israeli emergency services, the average time from siren to impact in that region is less than 15 seconds. 15 seconds. Now consider one name, Noah Levi, age 5. Her teacher, identified in a Reuters report as Miriam Cohen, described carrying her into the shelter as the first explosions landed nearby. The building shook. Dust filled the air. Phones lost signal. Outside, multiple impact sites were later confirmed within a 2-kilometer radius. Noah survived. Others did not. Across northern Israel, emergency services reported dozens of civilian injuries and multiple fatalities within the first 24 hours, according to Al Jazeera and the New York Times. On the other side of the border, Lebanese villages faced retaliatory strikes, with BBC confirming civilian displacement in southern Lebanon as well. Let that land, because this is where the narrative fractures. Officials say targets. They do not say homes. They say infrastructure. They do not say streets. That was not an accident. And as statements from both sides escalated, each claiming precision, each claiming necessity, the reality on the ground became something else entirely. 2 populations, 2 directions, same fear. At 8:32 a.m., less than 2 hours after the first barrage, Israeli authorities expanded evacuation orders. By nightfall, entire towns were empty. Silence again, not peace, absence. So here's the question that sits underneath all of this. When both sides claim defense, who is left to protect the people inside the line of fire? Revelation number 3, and this one is about what is happening to the system itself, because this is no longer just about rockets or civilians or even borders. It is about whether the institutions designed to manage crises like this are still functioning under pressure. Here is the list. Delayed cabinet response meetings reported by CNN. Conflicting military briefings cited by Reuters within the same 12-hour window. Reserve unit mobilization gaps highlighted by the New York Times. Northern Command evacuation logistics overwhelmed beyond projected capacity, confirmed by BBC. Public messaging inconsistencies between defense and political leadership, documented by Al Jazeera. Emergency funding reallocations pushed through without full parliamentary review, according to Israeli finance disclosures. No commentary, just events. Now layer timing on top of that. On October 16th, less than 24 hours before the barrage, senior political figures were publicly engaged in internal policy disputes unrelated to the Northern Front, according to coverage by CNN. That is not a punchline. That is a documented fact. And this is where it connects. Revelation 1 showed us the physical strain, the cost, the systems, the saturation. Revelation 2 showed us the human cost, the civilians, the displacement, the fear. This is the cause behind both. Institutional lag, decision friction, fragmentation under pressure. Say that again, fragmentation under pressure. Because in modern conflict, speed is not just about missiles, it is about decisions. And when decision cycles slow down, even by hours, the entire structure becomes reactive instead of strategic. That is not how you win wars. That is how you lose them. And here is the uncomfortable truth. These were not incompetent actors. They were not disloyal. They were operating inside a system that was built for a different kind of conflict. Slower, more predictable, more contained. These were not failures of intent. They were failures of structure. These were not people abandoning the institution. They were loyal to it. And that is the thing that got them overwhelmed. Now, let us talk about the strategic logic Hezbollah is applying here, because this only looks chaotic from the outside. From the inside, it is structured, deliberate, and historically familiar. This is not about defeating Israel in a single Nirnaik battle. It is closer to World War II U-boat strategy, not destroying the fleet outright, but stretching it, exhausting it, forcing it to defend everywhere at once until the cost of defense becomes the vulnerability itself. Each rocket barrage forces interception. Each interception drains inventory. Each drained inventory forces resupply. Each resupply exposes dependence. That is compound collapse theory in motion. Each strike makes the system slightly weaker. Each response makes the next strike easier to execute. And this is where the map expands. Iran remains the strategic backer, funding, training, doctrine. The United States has moved assets into the region, carriers, missile defense, logistical support, confirmed by Pentagon briefings reported in CNN. France has issued warnings about escalation risks in Lebanon, according to Reuters, and Russia has said very little. Their silence is the most eloquent statement possible, because when major powers stop signaling clearly, it means they are watching for advantage, not stability. And here is the final piece. This strategy does not require immediate victory. It only requires sustained pressure without escalation beyond control. But that balance is fragile, because the actors who might stabilize this, mediators, international coalitions, diplomatic channels, are either overstretched or politically constrained. They have gone home, and the system that is being tested sits exactly where it was, undisturbed, watching. If this continues long enough, pressure becomes transformation, and that is when systems stop bending and start breaking, like this video, and share it with people who are trying to understand what is actually happening. Now let us talk about what this means for you personally, because this is where the story stops being about militaries and governments and starts being about ordinary people. Energy markets move first. Within 48 hours of the escalation, Brent crude futures rose by approximately 6.3%, according to market data cited by Reuters and Goldman Sachs commodity reports. Insurance premiums for shipping through the eastern Mediterranean increased by 18%, confirmed by Lloyd's List. That does not stay there. It moves downstream. Fuel prices at the pump, electricity generation costs, transportation of food. In previous regional escalations, consumer fuel costs increased between 9% and 14% within weeks, according to historical analysis from the U.S. Energy Information Administration. That is not a forecast. That is already in your wallet. Now add food. Higher fuel costs mean higher logistics costs. Higher logistics costs mean higher grocery bills. Staple goods, wheat, rice, cooking oil, are especially sensitive in regions already dealing with supply pressure. And here is the unexpected layer: data infrastructure. AI data centers, the backbone of everything from banking to communication, rely on stable energy pricing and uninterrupted global supply chains. Analysts at Morgan Stanley have already warned that prolonged regional instability could increase operational costs and data infrastructure by 5% to 8%. The digital world is not insulated from this, it is downstream from it. So when you look at this as another conflict far away, understand what is actually happening. The rockets did not create that uncertainty, they just made it impossible to ignore. There is a genuine counterargument that requires honest acknowledgement. Presenting only one side is the kind of analysis we criticize in other outlets, and this channel is not going to do that. Israel still retains overwhelming military superiority. Its air force, intelligence capabilities, and multi-layered missile defense systems remain among the most advanced in the world, confirmed repeatedly by Pentagon assessments, the New York Times, and BBC reporting. Hezbollah, despite its arsenal, cannot match that in a conventional sustained war. Fair point, we report it. But here is what defense analysts at CSIS and senior officials cited by Reuters understand that many surface-level narratives miss. This is not a conventional war. Superiority does not automatically translate into control when the battlefield is fragmented, when the engagement is continuous, and when the objective is not victory, but pressure. On paper, interception rates remain high, often above 85% in prioritized zones, according to Israeli defense briefings cited by CNN. But that number hides the deeper reality, because the question is not how many rockets are intercepted. The question is how long the system can sustain that rate under continuous strain. So where does this leave us? Let me give you two clear paths because there is no honest middle ground here. Path 1. Controlled containment. In this scenario, escalation is managed, not resolved. First, indirect communication channels between Israel, Lebanon, and regional mediators quietly reopen within days. Second, Hezbollah reduces firing intensity from barrage-level saturation to intermittent launches. Third, Israel continues limited strikes but avoids deep escalation into sustained ground operations in the north. Fourth, the United States and regional intermediaries apply pressure behind closed doors to stabilize the front before it expands. If all four steps align within a narrow window of time, roughly 2 to 4 weeks, the northern front settles into a prolonged, low-intensity exchange. No side fully achieves its objectives, but neither side collapses into full-scale war. This path is possible. But here is the condition that makes it difficult. It requires restraint under pressure simultaneously from multiple actors who are already operating under domestic political strain. Path 2. Structural drift into wider war. This is not a collapse in the Hollywood sense. There are no explosions marking a single ending, no final moment where everything breaks at once. There are just decisions that accumulate, not dramatically, not all at once, but steadily, irreversibly, like water eroding stone. Each retaliation expands the target list. Each miscalculation reduces trust in de-escalation channels. Each civilian casualty hardens political positions. Each new barrage forces new defense deployments. Years from now, a future generation will ask, how did they not see it coming? And the answer will be that they did. But each individual step looked manageable in isolation. This is the logic of gradual escalation. And multiple analysts, including those cited by BBC security correspondents and Reuters defense briefings, have warned that once northern Israel-Lebanon exchanges stabilize into daily rhythm, they become significantly harder to reverse than to contain early. So, where are we? I think we are closer to path 2 than the headlines suggest, but I also thought that before previous escalations fully stabilized, and then one additional strike, one political decision, changed everything. Here is what I keep coming back to. The northern border is not just a line on a map. It is a living system, and right now it is reacting like a body under stress it was not designed to sustain for long periods of time. We began with sirens over Kiryat Shmona, with schools, evacuation routes, and silence that felt temporary but carried weight. That same silence now feels different, because silence in this context is not absence. It is recalibration. It is the pause between decisions. It is the space where the next phase is already being shaped. Hezbollah, in this framing, is not simply an armed actor launching rockets. It is a pressure signal, a fire alarm pulled in a building where multiple floors are already uncertain about how stable the structure actually is. And Israel is not simply responding militarily, it is attempting to prove in real time that the structure still holds. But systems under continuous stress do not fail in a single moment. They transition. Slowly, quietly, from control to adaptation to normalization of instability. And that is the part most people miss. The system was never fully stable. It was temporarily cooperating. So the question is not whether escalation is possible. It already is. The question is this: can a security architecture built for containment survive a reality built for continuous pressure? Or does it eventually become something else entirely, while still believing it is the same thing? Share this with someone who still thinks this is just a local border conflict story. It is not. It is a case study in how modern warfare, politics, and pressure systems interact until the distinction between them starts to disappear. And before you leave, 3 questions. Q1, analytical. If northern air defenses are operating at high interception rates, but attacks are sustained over time in layered waves, at what exact threshold does successful defense become strategically meaningless despite tactical success? Q2, accountability. When civilian evacuation becomes a recurring pattern rather than an exception, which institution is ultimately responsible for preventing normalization of displacement, and why does that responsibility keep shifting instead of staying fixed? Q3, philosophical. Is regional stability ever truly stable in a system where security depends on constant readiness, constant retaliation capability, and constant anticipation of collapse? Or is stability just a temporary agreement between competing pressures? If this analysis helped you understand the situation beyond headlines, subscribe and turn on notifications. These developments are moving in real time, and context changes faster than most reporting cycles can keep up with. Like this video if you want more deep breakdowns like this, and share it with people who still think in headlines instead of systems. I read every comment, more especially the disagreements. This channel exists to cover the stories that are real, that have stakes, and that require more than a 90-second explanation. Stay sharp.